Well, the killing blow for the prosecution's case may have been Michael Cohen's latest bombshell admission. He fessed up to stealing $60,000 from the Trump Organization, a harsher crime than the one for which Trump is being charged. The New York Post says the prosecution's case now hinges on a liar, con artist, and a thief. That's harsh. Even CNN admitted that Trump was a victim and that Cohen made the state's case look even worse.
And the prosecution's case is, and they've said variations of this over and over, Donald Trump knew exactly what that $420,000 was for. He knew that it was for Stormy Daniels. He knew every penny. He knew every paperclip. No, he didn't, because he was getting robbed on that $420,000. Here's the other thing that is indefensible for the prosecution. Their theory now is Donald Trump committed either a misdemeanor or a Class E felony, the lowest felony. It goes from A to E. And while he was committing either that misdemeanor or Class E felony, he was the victim of a Class C felony, larceny, committed by our star witness, the prosecution's star witness, who we gave a free pass to.
I mean, if that's not a closing argument for the defense, I don't know what is. Martha, one of the things Ellie Honig said that I think is so key is you have the prosecution painting Trump as a penny pincher. They take excerpts from his book. He watched every dollar. Except, as you heard from Ellie, he missed the $60,000 that Michael Cohen stole. How do you jive those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think the former president might want to hire Ellie Honig as his next attorney if he needs one again. And hopefully this is going to wrap up soon. But, you know, I've really been watching a lot of the different coverage on this because you have panels of attorneys on every different network that see this in a very different way. Now, clearly, you saw a lot of consensus around the $60,000 stolen. There's no doubt about the fact Michael Cohen has admitted on the stand, I'm a liar. And now I'm also a thief, right? So these are very big revelations in all of this. But what I keep going back to is that, you know, I'm always wondering about this jury, right? Will they see it the way that all of us covering it see it, which is a very weak case, very novel prosecution in the first place? Will they be thinking about the fact that the FEC passed on this, the Department of Justice passed on this? How good a job will the closing argument for the defense team do in nailing down all of the novelty that is in this case and all of the difficulty in connecting the dots? Or is the jury going to say, well, you know, we know Michael Cohen's a liar, so was he lying when he said to Robert Costello that he had nothing on Trump or not? I mean, there's all these different instances. Was he lying here or was he lying there? I think it just remains to be seen. You know, many of us were in the courtroom. You look at their faces. It's very hard to tell how they're taking all this in. It certainly adds up that this case should be very, very thin gruel for this jury to deal with. But on the other hand, you know, the other argument I love is that Michael Cohen said, you know, well, I had to steal the money because I wasn't getting paid.
Yeah.
Now,
they actually paid him double.
Exactly. And are there some jurors who listen to that and say, well, you know what? He wasn't getting paid, so he had to take it out of what he had to take it out of the money that he was controlling. I don't know how people think. None of us are going to know how people think until this jury comes down. It certainly looks like, you know, the defense has put on a very good case. The prosecution also feels like they have proven that 20 times Cohen said Trump knew about this payment. Whether they can extrapolate that to these misdemeanor to the felony is a very tough nut to crack.
Bill, you know, you interviewed Robert Costello, that huge interview last Thursday, and I was fascinated by some of the notes coming out from Trey Gowdy, who did look at the jury. And today, Trey Gowdy said jury seems amused in parts by the bickering between Costello and the prosecutor. So interesting, they were very keyed into that. But then here's what Trey Gowdy said. I thought this was fascinating. Juries can forgive almost anything. They even forgive you for lying when you admit it and offer a plausible explanation, but they can sense a witness who's biased. The star witnesses for both the prosecution and defense appear to fit the bill. One against DJT, one for. How would the jury reconcile competing biases? Perhaps hung jury.
Yeah, I saw all those notes, and I thought Trey did a terrific job giving us some color inside the courtroom today. He also said that the strike zone needs to be consistent on behalf of the judge. So when you're objecting to something, whether it's the state or whether it's the defense, it needs to be equal on both sides. And I tell you what, I'm not a lawyer. I read every single email that comes from our team in that courtroom. I have a ton of respect for Jonathan Turley and Andy McCarthy and Trey Gowdy and the lawyers here on our panel today. I go through all these emails. I'm like, okay, okay, I'm on imagine the alphabet, right? I'm on P, I got to jump back to D, I got to go up to F, I got to go back to A. I'm trying to tie all this together. It doesn't really make sense to me, okay? And I'm really trying. And if I'm a juror, and I feel that way, and I'm getting expert legal advice and analysis every hour of every day, how do they feel? And furthermore, they have to wait 8 more days before they could even sit in a room and take a vote and see where everybody else stands. You know, Trump comes in there every day and says, it's election interference. You don't want me to campaign. I can't be in the battleground states. On and on it goes, right? Well, I mean, after today, can't you believe him more now than ever? Because the judge is allowing the jury to go ahead and enjoy an 8-day break before they come back together.
8 days. And you wonder, Harris, what they'll see. You know, if you watch CNN, you appear to have lost some of the left-wingers at CNN. And there's an argument if you've lost the left-wingers at CNN, maybe you've also lost the Manhattan-based jury. But someone you're never going to lose, apparently, even if it comes down to theft, is MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell. I want to play this for you. Wow. Watch.
Later, when Cohen was asked about that on redirect by the prosecution, it didn't really sound like stealing $30,000. It sounded a lot like Michael Cohen doing the little that he could within that calculation to rebalance the bonus he thought he deserved, and it still came out as less than the bonus he thought he deserved and the bonus he'd gotten the year before.
Well, you know what? That's what we call a bestie.
Yes, it is.
That's a friend that'll, like, you know, they're not just along for the ride. They'll help you push the limo. I mean, Lawrence O'Donnell, my goodness. Look, I'm mostly concerned about whether or not this case in the minds of the jurors gets worked out in the next 8 days. I think you hit the nail on the head. And if we live in some sort of rose-colored lens world where people don't have cell phones, that they're not getting text messages, they may not get any more information in terms of testimony in this case. They may not be reading articles and all of that. But what they are going to do is hear, well, how is Trump doing? Or how are the prosecutors doing in the case? They are going to hear that, even if they try not to. It's what people are talking about. In fact, we're talking about it so much, Biden decided he wanted to debate. Because he's not getting talked about at all. So, you know, I look at this and I think, well, what if the push is against the prosecution, and it looks like Trump had a good week, and he did last week and this week, so on and so forth, because of the case and the wackadoodle witnesses that the prosecution put up, blah, blah, blah. If you're a juror who might think this way, but I don't want Trump to win. If you're a typical New Yorker who hates him, I don't want him to win. Maybe that influences whether or not you would even look at the case and admit, yeah, there's nothing there, but I'm still gonna, you know, cast my vote as a juror in a way that helps the prosecution. This is dicey, not to sequester this jury, especially with a man who's running to be perhaps the next president, has already been president, making history in that way. Wouldn't you want to button up this jury and make them figure it out? Look, they have several days going into the holidays.
Trey said if this were a South Carolina judge, they'd say, take a lunch break, come back, and I want your final summation right now before we leave today.
Well, after that lunch break, Emily, I would argue the most critical part of the case is going to be the jury instruction. Cases are won or lost based on jury instructions. A key subsidiary point to that is Bradley A. Smith, the former FEC commissioner who was set to testify, but his testimony was so winnowed by the judge, the defense decided not to bring him. He put out like an 8-part thread on Twitter today, and number 6 was really important. While the judge would not let me testify on the meaning of the law, he would allow Michael Cohen to go on at length about whether and how his activity violated FECA, that's federal election law. So effectively, the jury got its instructions from Michael Cohen.
And that's the whole point of this trial, is that unlike you, Bill, you've been receiving legal analysis in real time. You've been hearing the facts as laid out in this trial. You've been hearing the testimony, and you've been applying it yourself in that thread of emails from our journalists and esteemed experts, the subject matter experts there in the overflow room. So you've been trying to put it together. So it makes sense why sometimes it feels a little overwhelming, but in part because you've been looking at the whole globe. Think about what this jury has been subjected to, which is part of the globe. You said it yourself earlier when you said the novelty, that the jury will have to apply the novelty of this very minute, very specific, very intricate form of laws. And in fact, Brad Smith went on to talk about that. Even Justice Scalia said, look, he's a smart man. He's an incredibly brilliant man. And even he self-admittedly had difficulty with federal election laws because it is, in fact, so intricate. So when you apply that at the end with this ribbon on top, which are the jury instructions, then the crucial, vital nature of them really is revealed, because the jury this entire time has been led step by step through the forest, down the path. Okay, yes to this, and this happened in this. But all of it only matters when you apply it to the law. And so now we're going to have both sides, both sets of attorneys that produce instructions to the judge. The judge might write his own, he might select one of theirs, or he might, in fact, rely on states' already given instructions. But I've seen a study actually out of Florida where 60% of jurors, if it was not in plain English, felt confused and disregarded it. So at the end of the day, we need plain English instructions that lay out quite clearly what the law is, and that is butting against the fact that these jurors have been told this entire time that the law was a certain way, which it's frankly not. So that's the highest bar to cross.
Dershowitz said last night it's the worst case he's seen in 60 years.
Yeah.
Maybe the jury will see it the same way.
And Mark Levin predicting, the jury instructions will be horrendously poisonous. So we will find out in short order.
We wonder if one of those instructions indeed will say, if you find that the witness has lied about a material fact, you can disregard the entire testimony. We talked about that. Wonder if that's going to be included. It should be. Cohen, looking at you.
If that's the case, see you, Michael Cohen. All right, well, we will look out for those instructions and bring them to you when we get them.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.